Good morning, this is your Stats Sensei, Mr. Spensei, and this is test review for Unit 1C, Design of Experiments. So the town of Riverbend is hosting a community festival. Angela Lopez volunteered her husband, Carlos, of course she did, to bring donuts. Since everyone wants the festival to be a success, Carlos wants to bring the donuts that people in Riverbend prefer. So in other words, we're trying to figure out what donut they want. Their teenage son, Diego, wasn't much help. He only mentions that his friends like Glaze Craze and Daylight Donuts, but he doesn't know which one is more popular. His sister, Elena Lopez, suggested collecting a sample of 120 volunteers of all ages from the town of Riverbend and conducting a match pair. Okay, so we have a sample size of 120, and we're going to conduct a match paired experiment. Your job is to diagram the match pair experiment that Elena proposed, being certain to say how many people were assigned to each treatment. Cool. So, if we're having a match pair, that means everybody is going to get tested twice. So we're going to have 120 people, and all 120 people are going to try some Glazed Craze donuts and Daylight donuts. So here's our diagram. And they told us you do not need to explain the random allocation, nor do you need to explain the comparison results. We need the diagram only. So we have 120 volunteers. We take a calculator and we take 120 and divide it by 2. And that gives us 60. So 60 went to Glaze Craze. They had that first. So they had Glaze Craze first. And then they followed up with the second donut was Daylight Donuts. On the other hand, the other 60 had Daylight Donuts first and Glaze Craze second. Now, the reason we do this, the reason we swap the order is because generally speaking, if you're eating a bunch of donuts because you're like, oh, I'm going to pig out, I'm going to eat a dozen donuts or a half dozen donuts or etc. By the time you get to that last donut, they don't taste so good. The very first one is usually the best one, not because the donut is better, but because we enjoy it more. Usually that first bite is the best. And what are we comparing at the end? Which one tastes better? All right. So, did you like the Glaze Craze or did you like the Daylight? All right. And so we swap the order because generally speaking, the one that you like best is the one you're going to try first. Please remember, if they're the same. Please remember, match paired, you get tested twice. So you had the Glaze Craze and then the Daylight Donuts if you're in group one. And by the way, let's call that group one. So group one got it this way. And you don't have to label group one. And group two, the other group, had Daylight Donuts first, then Glaze Craze second. Okay? All right, on to the next one. And by the way, this is a long review, so we're going to break this into 2 videos. So a multi-layer, completely randomized design was created to determine the reaction times of drivers with various levels of sleep and caffeine. The testing was conducted in a simulator with 860 volunteers. So 860 is our sample size, equally allocated to each of the treatments. It should be noted that 8 hours of sleep is the recommended amount of sleep for teenagers, and it was concluded to provide a baseline. That's a key word. Baseline means this is kind of our control. Okay, so when I look at this and I go, well, we had 860 and we have 4 hours of sleep, 6 hours of sleep, 8 hours of sleep, and 9 hours of sleep. So what's 860 divided by 4? 215. So that means 215 were allocated to the different sleep groups. All right. And so they were randomly allocated. We put all their names in a hat and randomly allocated 215 to that. Please note, we said this right here is our control group. Then we have the energy drink, coffee drink, tea drink, cola drink, and no caffeine. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we had to take the 215 and divide it by 5, and we ended up getting 43. So 43, so basically we started off with 860 divided by the 4 groups gave us 215. Then we had the 215, and we divided by that to 5, and we got 43. So we have 43 in each one of these subcategories. So this is the control group, and what we're concerned about is how much reaction time with various levels of sleep and caffeine. So we cared about reaction time. So that's the results we're comparing at the end. And so let's see what the first question asks us to do. Which treatment is the control group? Well, the control group, they already told us that 8 hours of sleep was considered the baseline. And if we're measuring caffeine, 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 no caffeine, no caffeine would be the baseline, so you could see what it is. So basically, those people getting 8 hours of sleep and no caffeine would be our baseline or our control group. So let's see what we have here. The control group is an experiment is 8 hours of sleep. Purpose of the control group is to provide a baseline for comparison. It's 8 hours of sleep and should say 8 hours of sleep and no caffeine. All right. So that's our control group. 8 hours of sleep and no caffeine is our control group. And the purpose of the control group is to provide a baseline for comparison so that the experimenters can determine whether or not changes in reaction time are due to the amount of sleep and caffeine. So super important that you need to add caffeine. It's not here. We'll get that fixed, but I need to say and caffeine too. All right. Because what were we measuring? What did we care about at the end? First off, keywords, reaction time is what we're measuring at the end. Other keyword, baseline for comparison. All right. So the next question, could this be performed as a single blind experiment? And I'm going to say, yeah, it could. There's no reason a data collector would have to know how much sleep you got because they just see you. They don't know if there's how much you're sleeping. And they don't know how much caffeine you're getting. So definitely could be done single blind. Yes, this could be done as a single blind experiment because the volunteers would need to know both how much sleep they would get and what to drink. The data collector would not know what each volunteer was assigned. Really, to be what you have to have is the data collector would not know what protocol each volunteer was assigned. And yes, this could be formed as a single blind. All right. You can stop right there. And then the part that I have underlined, actually, I'll come back and I'll highlight it. All right. That's why it can be done as single blind. The data collector would not need to know. All right. Could this be done as a double blind experiment? And the answer is no, because the volunteer would know what treatment actually specifically they would know which treatment would they know what they got? Well, they would know how much sleep they had. They would definitely know how much sleep. They may or may not know what's in the cup that you gave them, whether it's coffee, tea, cola, etc. But they probably know that. They would know which treatment, they know how much sleep, and likely by taste, they would know and which drink. All right. They know which drink and how much sleep. So they pretty much know with this. Explain the comparison of the results. Well, what are we measuring? At the end of time, we're measuring reaction time. And we got that up from here with it says to determine the reaction time. So that's what we're looking at, reaction time. So evaluators would be comparing the reaction time of the drivers in a study. Did the caffeine and sleep impact reaction time? There are 860 volunteers in the study. How many were assigned to each treatment? Well, how many treatments were there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So if I take 860, I could divide it by 20 and I would get 43. So 860 divided by 20 equals 43. Or the way I would have preferred to do it is go, well, 860 divided by the four groups equals 215. Then I take that 215 and I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, divide that by 5, and I would also get 43. So either way, I prefer 860 divided by 4 is 215. 215 divided by 5 is 43. But if you just wanted to count up all the 20 treatments, and we had 860 volunteers, 20 treatments, 860 divided by 20 is 43, and that's perfectly acceptable. Okay, the next thing, it says list each explanatory variable. List each explanatory variable along with the number of levels associated. Well, the explanatory variables are the number of splits. Well, we have a split here. That's one split. And that one split, it looks like, oh, this looks like my sleep variable. And it has 1, 2, 3, 4 groups. So that's 4 groups. It means it has 4 levels. Over here, my next split occurs right here. And this is where people get a little confused. Please note, this group is the same as this group, is the same as this group, is this the same group as this group. So we don't count the repeats. We just need to focus in on one of them. So when I look at that, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups here, but I also have, what would I call that? Well, this is the caffeine, the amount of caffeine, and it looks like it has 5 levels. Incidentally, what's 4 times 5? 4 times 5 equals 20. And look at this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 different treatments. All right. So for this one, it says list each explanatory variable. We said one of them was sleep, and it had 4 levels. We said the other one was caffeine, and it has 5 levels. And that's what we have right here. Sleep is 4 levels, caffeine is 5 levels. The next thing it asks us to do is list each treatment. All right. So you can abbreviate this or you can write it all out, but your treatments are going to be 4E for coffee, or 4,200, 4,100, 450, 434, 40. Why 0? Because it's no caffeine. So for our energy, for our, you know what, I'm going to fold this over so we can see, be looking at that diagram as we go through it. All right, here we go. So 4 hour energy, 4 hour coffee, 4 hour tea, 4 hour cola, 4 hour with none. 6 hour energy, 6 hour coffee, 6 hour tea, 6 hour cola, 6 hour none. Now, if you wanted to shrink that up and you didn't want to write all that, but some of you probably don't, and I get it. So if you didn't want to write all that, you could have gone, well, 4, 200, 4, 100, 4, 50, 4, 34, 4, 0. Then I do the same thing for the 6, 6, and I'll do that one, 6, 200, 6, 100, 6, 50, 6, 34, 6, 0. Then we have 8, 200, 8, 100, 8, 50, 8, 34, 8, 0. And then the last one, 9, 200, 9, 100, 9, 50, 9, 34, 9, 0. And when I count these up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, because we have 20 treatments. Or you could have written them out like this. I'm going to leave this up there so you can take a look at that. All right. So that includes our first video. We'll do questions 3 and 4 in the next one. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you on the next one. Thank you.